And that's a good segue because the Gray Zone, I think it was Aaron Mate, did a great piece basically exposing that CNN, who had a breaking story weeks ago about Julian Assange when he was in the Ecuadorian embassy, that Assange was essentially like the control center and was having people come and go, basically to work with Russia as far as the 2016 election. Aaron and the Gray Zone essentially debunked it. Assange continues to remain in a Belfast jail. His mother tweeted out that he's lost, I think, 15 pounds. Obviously, there's a lot of reports of his declining mental, physical health, and I think the court hearing is in February of next year for, honestly, likely extradition to the U.S. Can you kind of talk about the continued propaganda against Assange that you guys have exposed?
Yeah, there's so many lies about Julian Assange. It's part of the same war on alternative media we were talking about. This past week, this is early September, right? So this past week, there was a major rally in London, and Roger Waters, the legendary singer from Pink Floyd, sang Wish You Were Here, one of his most famous songs, in support of Julian Assange outside the British Home Office. Like you mentioned, Assange is a political prisoner, and multiple prominent people around the world, including the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, have said that he is being tortured and should be released. Also, and we need to always stress, because mainstream media never mentions this, for years now, the UN Special Committee, like the experts on arbitrary detention, have for years said that Julian Assange is being arbitrarily detained, even when he was in the embassy, and that he must be released and is due compensation for all of the harm done to him. This is a legally binding decision by a major UN body. So it's against international law. Of course, Britain and the US don't care at all about violating international law, as we've seen. So it's just so criminal what's been going on. They're torturing this journalist who has never committed a crime. All he has done is published information that is factual and in the public interest at WikiLeaks. And the Obama administration, not that it was some great beacon of freedom, because the Obama administration went after Chelsea Manning and other whistleblowers, but even the Obama administration was afraid of trying to extradite Assange because it knew that if it charged Assange with crimes, that it would also open the door for charging any journalist, including the New York Times and the Washington Post's own stenographers, of supposed crimes for doing the act of journalism. So now the Trump administration is opening the door, essentially, for a war on all journalists, and the neoliberal pundits are clapping like seals. They're totally fine with it. They always talk about when Trump criticizes Acosta and some of these stupid pundits at CNN, they're like, oh my God, this is a Nazi-style attack on the freedom of the press. And it's like, no, Trump's an idiot, but so are these people. And when he's criticizing them, they often deserve it. But now he's actually, in the most severe way possible, threatening the freedom of the press. And they're clapping. They're going along with it. They're saying that Assange is not a journalist, blah, blah, blah. And you mentioned at the Gray Zone, we published a video interview and also a very long print piece with a former Ecuadorian diplomat. His name is Fidel Narvaez, and he worked in the Ecuadorian embassy in London when Julian Assange was living there. And Narvaez, this former Ecuadorian diplomat, is a close friend of Assange. They worked together for many years. He knows him very well. He was working 5 days a week, full-time, in the embassy. He saw everything that happened. And at the Gray Zone, he wrote an article for us, and he found 40 lies and distortions and half-truths in the CNN report on Assange, this supposed bombshell report. And Narvaez just kind of methodologically walks through all of the lies. Lies like Assange smeared his poop on the walls of the embassy, a complete fabrication. Lies like Assange was getting in fist fights with the diplomats, a complete lie. And then there's, of course, smaller lies, like white lies. But it's all part of this propaganda that is being fed by intelligence agencies, not just the US, but the Ecuadorian intelligence agencies, which are now against Assange and against the former leftist president. and the new president is a neoliberal who's allowing the reopening of a U.S. military base on an Ecuadorian island. So all of these factors are coming together, and Julian Assange is becoming the scapegoat that neoliberals and the Republicans under Trump are all throwing all of their smears and their stones at and blaming him for everything. And in the meantime, like again, he stressed this point, this potential extradition to the U.S. and charging Assange for the crime of doing journalism is the biggest attack on press freedoms in this century, if not further.